As wildfires devastate places in Greece and California, is there any way of preparing to cope with those disasters? Can governments mitigate the damage in any way, respond effectively? Well, we can talk now to David Demeritt. He's Professor of Geography at King's College London, an expert in what's known as hazard governance and a member of the government steering group for natural hazards. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
We were hearing in the programme earlier from California and the scale of the Dixie fire there, 2.5 times the size of New York City. So can you give us a sense, is there anything that governments there can do to prepare against that?
Well, so, the United States is a big place and California is a big state. So we have seen lots of fires, particularly in the north part of the state. So it's heavily forested, relatively lightly populated, and that makes it actually quite difficult to prevent the fires once they get going. The terrain is really difficult. It's hard to get in there and suppress them. We have got massive fuel loads because we've been putting out fires for 100 years, and the trees and the brush all die, and then it's just kind of ready to catch on fire. So what you're seeing in California is we're kind of reaping the harvest of 120 years of trying to put out every fire before 10 a.m. The fuel loads build up. And then when you do get a fire, instead of having a small, medium one, you have these like incredible infernos like we have seen this year, last year, year before that, the Park Fire, so on in Paradise. And so that's kind of the story in California. And it's very difficult to get out of that hole.
So people there are just going to have to learn to live with this kind of devastation, do you think?
Probably. That's not a very nice thing to say, but I think it's true. There are some things that can be done at kind of household and neighborhood level. You can, cut the brush around your house, but that only works if everyone else does the same thing. And even then, when you have, we have had record-setting heat and drought in the Northwest North America. In those circumstances, when the fires get going, it is very, very difficult to stop them, and there isn't really much to do except try to get away.
Is it, I was going to say easier, easier is not quite the right word, but when it comes to flooding, are there more measures that can be taken there?
So, yes, again, that all depends on where you are. So here in Britain, the government spends quite a bit of money on so-called flood and coastal erosion risk management. And we have a variety of strategies from kind of dikes and pumps, increasingly trying to work with so-called natural processes and, slow the flow and keep the water upstream. And on the one hand, flooding in many circumstances is kind of more preventable if you're prepared to engineer the landscape thoroughly enough. But it's expensive, and there are trade-offs, and eventually, with the sea level rise and things, there comes a time when you do have to decide, can we defend this anymore? So flooding, I would have said in some ways is more manageable. But when you have massive flood events, like massive fires, there's only so much that can be done.
Professor David Demeritt, thank you.